Hi, I'm Olivia, aka Bibliocool, and I've been really enjoying Women in Translation Month, so I thought that I'd share some of my thoughts on the queer novels around the world that I've been reading. The first book I read is super short. It's only around 100 pages, and it is the first novel to be translated by an Equatorial Guinean woman, but it is also banned in Equatorial Guinea, probably because of the queer themes in the book, but it follows a girl named Okomo who is dealing with the expectations of life in the Fang culture in her village. It is a patrilineal society, so there is a grandfather character that she reflects on kind of sarcastically, and the things that she's required to do for him, and how he goes back and forth between exalting these male warriors from the past and sternly communicating expectations. And she's also dealing with her grandmother and her grandfather's second wife always warring and bickering, and because the second wife is much younger, her grandmother's jealousy. So I guess Okomo actually means bastard. The main character is also dealing with the fact that her mother died and her father is seen as no good, but she has no idea who he is because nobody will tell her. So she has this goal to, kind of find belonging because she's been, taken in by her grandparents, but she isn't feeling any love in this family, and there's a lot of expectations around gender that she doesn't really identify with, like wearing makeup and finding a husband. She does have one solace, that her uncle, who is gay and kind of ostracized by society, is very loving towards her, and she also meets this group of girls who are dealing with their own problems with certain expectations from the culture, and then she ends up, having romantic and sexual dalliances with these girls. And so the book is kind of showing the importance of having one older person in your life that has experienced similar trials and tribulations as you and made it through the other end of these cultural expectations, especially the necessity of an older figure and roots and belonging in terms of the main character's queer identity. And also there's, different language used around sexuality in this novel, so I'm using the term queer, but there are different ones used. But overall, I really enjoyed this novel. I thought that it was very smart in the way that this, teenage main character was reflecting on things, but also I love the trope of found family and the idea of these people in the woods finding freedom and finding each other. So I really enjoyed La Bastarda. I think you should definitely pick it up. The next book I want to talk about is The Adventures of Tina Iron by Gabriella Cabazon Camara and translated by Fiona McIntosh and Iona McIntyre. And I'm buddy reading this with Anna Maria, actual spinster. So it was really good to parse out the complicated feelings we were having about this book together. This book is about the main character, China, who abandons her family, and also her husband is conscripted into war. So she gives her children to neighbors and sets out on her own and meets a Scottish woman named Liz. And China's Argentine, by the way. I don't know if I said that. So she goes on this journey with Liz and her dog, and they meet people along the way, one of whom is this major general and is working with all these gauchos to develop Argentina. And he has a lot of racist rants that are kind of unpleasant to get through. But the whole beginning of this novel, where they're describing the lush landscape of Argentina and just the freedom that China's having for the first time. She's learning language from Liz. She's learning a lot about the world beyond where she was, because she had kind of unfortunate circumstances growing up, and then with her husband that trapped her. The power dynamics of China learning things through Liz, a colonizer, is complicated, and it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, but at the same time you're understanding that she is able to grow and find freedom and find affection and sex and freedom of gender identity through this journey is really the wonderful part of it. In part 3 of the novel, they end up encountering this indigenous group, and it was interesting to learn about the translator's process and how they incorporated the Guarani language into this part to kind of capture that unfamiliarity and concepts that weren't the same in English. There are a lot of orgies in this book, and learning about other people's lifestyles through sex. And I really loved this part of the book, and the indigenous worldview that's explored, familial relationships with nature, land, and animals. And this book was really good at placing you into Argentina during this time period. You really felt transported. I do wonder, and I'd be curious if anybody has more information about this, what indigenous reviewers have thought of this representation in the book, especially since it kind of is painted in this utopian light in a way. And the book was really interesting because certain parts of it I just loved, but the middle has a lot of really violent and racist language and events, and there is a lot of time spent wondering what the payoff will be and if these things will be necessary. And Anna Marie and I were talking about it, and I was saying how I don't appreciate gratuitous racism and violence in books, but I thought that a lot of this was needed for the plot and accurate for the time and who the characters were. And it complicates the main character, because you don't want to be rooting for someone that's saying these racist things without any thought or critical reflection. So it is complicated in that way, but I still enjoyed the book, and I'm glad that I did read it again, just for the exploration and the character's quest for freedom in a myriad of ways. So I'd be really curious to hear, if you've read this, what your thoughts are. Hi, so it's been a while since I read the other 2 books, and I originally wanted to read 2 more books, but I didn't end up getting to the 4th book, unfortunately. But I did want to give an update about Amora. This is a book of short stories by Natalia Borges Palesso and translated by Julia Sanchez. And they are all different stories of women in love. I enjoyed the collection. There were certain stories that I really liked, but overall, I'm not a huge short story person, I think I'm finding. So this was a good read, but not anything that blew me away. The novel has stories from women of all ages and at all different points in their relationships. It has young people coming to terms with their sexuality, and one of my favorite stories in this is about an old couple and their daily routines that they've had for years. But it's not just about beginnings and endings. There's stories about how grief affects relationships, what other relatives think of these relationships, stories with violence, stories with couples that have broken up and are trying to rekindle the love between them. So these stories did really cover a wide range of relationships, or the longing for a relationship. So yeah, I think my order of enjoyment between these three was La Bastarda, then The Adventures of China Iron, and then Amora. But I would love to read more queer books from around the world, so if you have recommendations of books that you love, I'd love to hear it. Overall, during Whip Month, I've been reading some really great books, and I'm going to be filming a wrap-up for all of those, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, thanks for watching.